Imagine boarding a first-class flight, dressed sharp, dreams soaring high, only to be humiliated before dozens of strangers. That's exactly what happened to Aria Johnson, a stunning young black woman whose style turned heads but whose skin color drew silent judgment. Moments after handing over her valid first-class ticket, Aria was coldly told by senior flight attendant Monica Harper, "Economy is that way." Without warning, Aria was escorted to economy like she didn't belong, despite having every right to her seat. But here's where the story takes a shocking turn. Monica had no idea Aria's mentor was none other than Avery Cole, the CEO of the airline itself. As Aria sat quietly, trying to hold back her frustration, a storm was brewing at 35,000 feet, one that would shake the entire flight. What happened when the plane landed changed everything. Stay with us till the end to find out, and if this story moves you, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more true stories that matter. Aria Johnson strode through the bustling halls of JFK International Airport, her crisp white blazer catching the light, the red soles of her Louboutins tapping confidently against the polished floor. Her dark curls framed her radiant face, and her emerald green carry-on rolled smoothly behind her. This was supposed to be the perfect ending to a perfect chapter, graduating summa cum laude and finally heading home to Los Angeles in well-deserved first-class style. Her mentor, Avery Cole, had given her the ticket as a personal gift. "You earned this," he had said with a proud smile. To Aria, it wasn't just a seat, it was a symbol of every late night, every obstacle overcome, and every moment she refused to let anyone define her worth. As she entered the exclusive first-class lounge, Aria felt the shift in the air. Eyes flicked toward her, some admiring, others questioning. She held her head high, choosing to focus on the excitement bubbling inside her. She checked her boarding pass again, first class, seat 2A. The boarding call finally came. Aria gathered her things and made her way toward the gate, her heart skipping with anticipation. Standing by the entrance was Monica Harper, the senior flight attendant, impeccably dressed, her platinum hair pulled into a tight bun. Monica offered polite smiles to the stream of passengers, until her gaze fell on Aria. Aria stepped forward, offering her ticket with a warm smile. Monica's own smile faltered. Her eyes scanned Aria's designer outfit, then lingered a moment too long on her skin. With a tone sugar-coated in fake politeness, Monica said, "Economy boarding is that way," pointing behind Aria. For a second, the noise around them seemed to dull. Aria blinked, confused but composed, and calmly said, "I'm in first class," holding her ticket a little higher. Monica's lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced at the ticket briefly, her eyes hardening. "There must be a mistake," she said sweetly, voice laced with skepticism. "First class isn't usually, for everyone." A few passengers shifted uncomfortably behind Aria, sensing the tension. Some looked away, pretending not to notice. Others leaned in, eager to see how the scene would unfold. Monica, refusing to believe Aria belonged, called for security to double-check the ticket. Within minutes, 2 guards appeared, their stiff posture making it clear they expected trouble. Though Aria protested gently, showing her boarding pass again, Monica insisted there was an error, and had her escorted to the economy cabin without further explanation. Aria walked the humiliating path down the aisle, dozens of curious eyes following her every step. She slipped into a narrow economy seat by the window, her heart pounding, her hands trembling slightly. She had done nothing wrong, but she had been made to feel small, out of place. Pulling out her phone, Aria sent a quiet message to Avery, "Move to economy. They said my ticket was wrong. I didn't want to cause a scene, but this feels so unfair." She stared out the window, trying to steady her breath, unaware that miles above the ground, a storm was already gathering, and Monica Harper had just made the biggest mistake of her career. Back at the first-class boarding gate, Monica Harper smoothed the hem of her navy blazer, ignoring the uneasy glances from a few bystanders who had witnessed the scene. She had convinced herself she was protecting the airline's image, ensuring that first class remained at a certain standard. To her, Aria Johnson had been an anomaly, a glitch in the system. Settling back into her routine, Monica greeted the next few passengers with an overly bright smile, trying to shake off the lingering discomfort. But deep down, a nagging unease gnawed at her, a small voice reminding her she had crossed a line. She pushed it away. In her mind, appearances mattered more than paperwork, and appearances told her Aria didn't belong. Meanwhile, in economy, Aria sat silently, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The sting of humiliation hadn't faded. She glanced at her phone again, no reply yet from Avery Cole. She knew he must be busy. Still, she couldn't help but wonder if she had overreacted. Was it worth it to fight this? The minutes dragged by. Flight attendants bustled through the aisles preparing for takeoff. Aria kept her head down, ignoring the curious glances from nearby passengers who had seen her escorted back. Her palms itched to text again, to demand justice, but she stayed still, clinging to the composure that had gotten her this far. Unbeknownst to her, Avery Cole was already in action. Sitting in his sleek corner office overlooking downtown Los Angeles, Avery had dropped everything the moment he saw Aria's message. Without hesitation, he picked up a direct line to the airline's internal operations division and issued an immediate directive. 5 minutes after takeoff, the captain's cockpit phone rang, a priority call. Captain Reynolds, a seasoned pilot with decades of experience, answered with a calm, professional tone. But as soon as he heard Avery Cole's name, his posture straightened. "I just received word that my mentor, Aria Johnson, was wrongfully removed from her seat in first class." Avery's voice was firm but even. "She had a fully valid ticket. I expect this to be verified immediately. Furthermore, make a public announcement to the cabin. Remind everyone that discrimination, of any kind, will not be tolerated on any of our flights." Captain Reynolds did not question. He understood the gravity of a call from the CEO himself. Within minutes, he composed an announcement, his voice steady as it echoed through the plane. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said over the intercom, "we would like to remind all passengers that we maintain a strict policy of non-discrimination. Every passenger deserves to be treated with fairness and respect, regardless of appearance, background, or any other factor. Our airline stands firmly against any form of prejudice." The cabin fell into an immediate hush. Heads turned. A few passengers who had witnessed Aria's removal exchanged looks of realization. Monica Harper, standing stiffly in the galley at the front of first class, felt her stomach twist into knots. Her face flushed hot as she realized the announcement was no coincidence. Across the plane, Aria looked up, startled. For the first time since boarding, she allowed herself a small, cautious smile. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone after all. Monica Harper stood frozen at the front of the cabin, her mind racing. The captain's announcement left no doubt, someone had reported the incident. And from the tone, it wasn't just a random complaint. It was official, powerful, and directed squarely at her. For the first time in years, Monica felt the slippery edge of fear. Trying to regain her composure, she busied herself with small tasks, adjusting the linen napkins, checking the wine glasses, anything to appear unaffected. But her hands trembled slightly, betraying the storm inside her. She stole glances at the passengers, wondering who had noticed, who had heard, who might be watching her now with different eyes. In economy, Aria Johnson sat straighter, her pulse steadying. The message was clear, someone with real authority was stepping in. She didn't know how far it would go, but the isolation she had felt moments earlier was starting to lift. She could sense it in the shifting atmosphere, the way people now glanced at her with a mixture of guilt, sympathy, and quiet respect. A few rows behind Aria, a young woman leaned over and whispered to her companion, "That's not right. She's just as classy as anyone up there." Others nodded subtly, murmurs of agreement spreading like soft ripples through the cabin. Meanwhile, at the front, Monica's earpiece buzzed sharply. "Ms. Harper," the lead operations officer's voice crackled in her ear, "the captain has requested a full verification of all first-class passengers' tickets immediately. Focus especially on passenger Aria Johnson." Monica's throat tightened. She knew there was no point arguing. She tapped on her tablet with shaking fingers, pulling up the flight manifest. When she scrolled to seat 2A, there it was in bold, Aria Johnson, verified first-class passenger. Her heart sank. There had been no mistake. Only her assumptions. Only her prejudice. For a moment, Monica just stared at the screen, wishing she could will the information away. But reality was merciless. She quickly turned, straightening her blazer, and began making her way toward the economy cabin, each step heavier than the last. Passengers watched her approach, their conversations dwindling into a thick silence. Monica felt the weight of their stares, the judgment, the curiosity, the silent questions. She caught sight of Aria near the window, poised and calm, radiating the kind of dignity that made Monica's earlier actions seem even more despicable. Stopping beside Aria's row, Monica bent slightly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ms. Johnson," she said, her voice unsteady, "I sincerely apologize for the confusion earlier. It appears there was a mistake. If you're ready, we'd like to escort you back to your first-class seat." Aria looked up, her expression unreadable. She glanced at the flight attendant for a long moment, the memory of every slight and insult hanging heavy between them. Then, with a polite but firm tone, Aria replied, "Thank you, but I'm comfortable here." A stunned silence followed. Monica blinked, caught off guard. She had expected Aria to jump at the chance to return. Instead, the rejection stung sharper than any reprimand. Monica straightened awkwardly, murmured another quick apology, and retreated, the quiet whispers of passengers filling the air behind her. Aria turned back to the window, her heart steady. She had nothing to prove. Not anymore. The plane hummed steadily through the clouds as the tension on board simmered just beneath the surface. Passengers whispered among themselves, the earlier announcement still fresh in everyone's mind. Monica Harper returned to the first-class cabin, her face a careful mask of professionalism, but her nerves frayed with every step. She could feel it, the balance of power had shifted, and for the first time, she wasn't the one in control. Aria Johnson remained by the window, a quiet but undeniable presence. She didn't need to raise her voice or seek attention. Her refusal to return to first class spoke louder than any confrontation could. It was a dignified stand, and passengers took notice. An older gentleman in the row across from her leaned over to his wife and muttered, "Good for her. She's got more grace than half the people up there." His wife nodded, frowning in Monica's direction. Meanwhile, Avery Cole wasn't finished. In the airline's operations center, he was orchestrating a response far bigger than a single apology. His orders were clear: when the plane landed, he would personally meet Aria and ensure that everyone responsible for what had happened would be held publicly accountable. No sweeping under the rug. No silent corrections behind closed doors. This would be a lesson for everyone watching. Back on the plane, the minutes stretched long and heavy. Monica hovered in the galley, stealing anxious glances at the clock. She couldn't focus on anything, her usual confidence had eroded into a tight knot of dread in her chest. Every polite smile she offered now felt forced, brittle. She overheard snippets of conversations, passengers questioning her behavior, murmuring about fairness and dignity. The walls were closing in. The captain's voice came over the intercom once again, announcing their initial descent into Los Angeles. The words were routine, but the energy inside the cabin was anything but. Eyes turned toward Aria, a few passengers giving her discreet nods of encouragement. She acknowledged them with a quiet, gracious smile, never losing the calm strength she had maintained from the beginning. As the wheels touched down and the plane taxied to the gate, Monica's hands trembled slightly while she secured the galley. She could already picture it, Avery Cole waiting at the arrival gate, disappointment etched into every line of his face. When the aircraft door finally opened, the cabin remained unusually silent. Passengers didn't leap from their seats as they normally would. Instead, they sat still, almost holding their breath, sensing that something important was about to unfold. Then he appeared. Avery Cole, standing tall in a dark tailored suit, stepped into the cabin with quiet authority. Two senior executives flanked him, their expressions serious. Every eye on the plane followed his every move as he walked directly to Aria's seat. Aria looked up, her heart skipping a beat as she saw him. Avery smiled gently and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did nothing wrong," he said clearly, his voice carrying to everyone nearby. "And now, we'll make sure everyone knows it." Monica, standing frozen at the front of first class, knew the moment had come. There would be no hiding, no excuse good enough. Judgment had arrived, and it wore a tailored suit and a calm, unshakable gaze. The passengers watched in complete silence as Avery Cole straightened and turned his attention from Aria Johnson to the rest of the cabin. His eyes, calm but piercing, scanned the first-class section, then slowly moved to Monica Harper, who stood stiffly near the galley, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Without raising his voice, Avery spoke clearly enough for every passenger to hear. "The problem here today isn't just a mistake in seating," he began, his tone even but unyielding. "It's the assumption, the prejudice, that led to it. And I want to make it absolutely clear, on this airline, respect is not reserved for the few. It belongs to everyone." A ripple of murmurs moved through the cabin. Monica's cheeks flushed a deep red, but she stood frozen, knowing any attempt to explain herself would only make things worse. Avery took a step closer, his gaze steady on her. "Monica Harper," he said formally, effective immediately, "you are suspended from duty pending a full investigation into discriminatory conduct." Gasps broke out among the passengers. Monica's mouth opened slightly, as if to protest, but no words came. She bowed her head instead, her once impeccable composure crumbling under the weight of the moment. Avery didn't linger. He turned back to Aria and offered her a hand. "Let's get you where you belong," he said with a small, encouraging smile. Aria stood, gathering her things quietly. As she made her way toward the front of the plane, the passengers began to clap, not wildly, but steadily, building into a wave of support. It wasn't just for Aria, but for what she represented: dignity, patience, and resilience in the face of injustice. Monica stepped aside, her shoulders shrinking inward, avoiding the eyes that once admired her authority but now looked at her with silent condemnation. Avery guided Aria to her original seat, 2A, and waited until she was comfortably seated before nodding to the flight crew to continue deplaning procedures. As the passengers exited, many paused by Aria's seat to offer small words of encouragement or a brief nod of respect. An elderly woman squeezed Aria's hand and whispered, "You showed real class today, dear." A young man in a business suit added, "Thanks for standing tall. Some of us needed to see that." Monica remained rooted to the spot, invisible now, invisible in a way she had once reserved for passengers she deemed unworthy. By the time the last passenger disembarked, the cabin was almost empty except for the airline executives and Monica. Avery gave her one final look, a glance devoid of anger but heavy with disappointment. "You judged her by what you thought you saw," he said quietly. "And today, you'll face the consequences of that judgment." Monica nodded, unable to meet his eyes, her career unraveling silently in the heavy, judgment-laden air. Meanwhile, Aria stepped off the plane into the bright California sunlight, carrying herself with the same poise she had shown through every painful moment, her head high, her dignity untouched. The fallout from the flight was swift and public. By the next morning, news outlets were buzzing with the story: airline CEO confronts discrimination on board, passengers' dignity restored. Passengers who had witnessed the events firsthand posted about Aria Johnson's grace and Avery Cole's decisive actions. The story quickly went viral, striking a nerve across the country. In the days that followed, Avery issued an official statement on behalf of the airline. It wasn't filled with vague promises or corporate jargon. Instead, it was direct, unapologetic, and powerful: discrimination has no place in our skies. Every customer deserves respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. We are committed to ensuring that this principle is upheld every single day. The airline immediately launched a mandatory training program for all employees, flight attendants, ground staff, and even corporate executives. Avery didn't want a quick fix, he demanded a cultural shift. The new program, called Wings of Respect, focused on recognizing implicit bias, promoting empathy, and encouraging active inclusion. Aria's story became a cornerstone of the training. Without using her name directly, the training detailed a real-life case study of how unconscious prejudice could damage lives and reputations in a matter of moments. New hires and veteran employees alike were required to complete interactive workshops where they confronted their own biases, shared personal experiences, and pledged to create a more inclusive environment. Meanwhile, Monica Harper was officially suspended without pay pending a final review. The airline offered her a chance to participate in the same rigorous training, not as a leader but as a student. The message was clear: change was expected from everyone, starting with those who had failed the most visibly. As for Aria, she chose not to pursue legal action, despite many encouraging her to. Instead, she accepted a personal invitation from Avery Cole to serve as an advisor on the airline's new Diversity and Inclusion Board. "I don't want revenge," she said during a press conference. "I want change. Real change." Standing at the podium in a simple, elegant dress, Aria spoke with the same calm strength she had shown on the flight. "What happened to me isn't rare. It's just rarely challenged. If we want things to change, we have to stay in the uncomfortable moments, speak up, and hold people accountable, not with anger, but with resolve." Her words resonated far beyond the room. In the following weeks, other companies and airlines took notice, with some reaching out to Aria to help consult on similar initiatives. She had turned her painful experience into a catalyst for transformation, her quiet dignity becoming a symbol of hope and leadership. And though she never sought fame, Aria's story became a reminder across the country that one person's grace under pressure can spark a movement. In boardrooms and break rooms, classrooms and living rooms, people repeated the simple truth she embodied: respect is not a privilege. It's a right. Months after the incident, the impact of Aria Johnson's quiet stand was still rippling through the airline, and beyond. Wings of Respect had evolved from a single internal program into a national model for the aviation industry. Other major airlines began reaching out, eager to implement similar standards, and Avery Cole made it clear: this wasn't about branding. It was about lasting change. Aria continued her work with the Diversity and Inclusion Board, attending monthly meetings and advising on policies that touched every level of the company. She approached each session with the same calm, steady determination she had shown on the flight, pushing for practical changes that ensured dignity was more than just a slogan. Under her influence, the airline adopted new practices: anonymous passenger surveys, immediate reporting lines for discrimination, and mandatory empathy workshops for all customer-facing employees. Meanwhile, Monica Harper reappeared, humbled and changed. After completing the intensive training program, she requested to meet with Aria privately. Not for redemption in the public eye, but for a real, personal apology. The meeting took place in a quiet corner of the airline's headquarters. Monica arrived without her uniform, without the polished armor she once wore so proudly. She looked almost fragile, holding a small envelope in her hands. "I'm not here to make excuses," Monica said, her voice low and sincere. "I'm here to tell you I was wrong. I judged you unfairly. I let my pride and my bias blind me, and for that, I am truly sorry." Aria listened quietly, her expression thoughtful but guarded. After a long pause, she nodded. "Acknowledging it is the first step," she said. "But real change comes with what you do next." Monica nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. She handed Aria the envelope, a handwritten letter expressing her commitment to continue the work, to rebuild trust not through words, but through actions over time. Aria accepted the letter silently. She didn't offer forgiveness easily, it wasn't something to be handed out like a courtesy. But she did offer something even stronger: a chance. A chance for Monica to prove, day after day, that people can change when they choose to face themselves honestly. Later that year, at the airline's annual leadership conference, Aria stood on stage beside Avery Cole. She wasn't introduced as a victim or a symbol, but as a leader. A woman who had helped change the course of a company without shouting, without scandal, but through the strength of her character. In the crowd sat Monica, now back in a junior training role, watching with quiet respect. She wasn't the star of the moment, and she didn't need to be. She understood that sometimes the greatest redemption isn't in reclaiming the spotlight but in lifting others into it. As Aria finished her speech, her voice steady, her smile calm, the entire room rose to their feet in applause. And somewhere in the middle of that standing ovation, Monica clapped the loudest, not for herself, but for the woman who had shown the world that dignity could not be stolen, and that true change always starts with courage. True dignity doesn't come from titles, wealth, or appearances, it comes from how we carry ourselves when we're tested. Aria Johnson's story reminds us that calm strength and quiet resilience can break through even the hardest barriers of prejudice. In life, we all face moments where others might judge us unfairly. But standing firm, without losing our grace, can inspire change far beyond what we imagine. Respect isn't something that should be earned based on how we look, it's a basic right every human being deserves. If Aria's journey moved you or made you think differently about how small moments of courage can shape a better world, I invite you to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. Your voice matters here, and together, through these stories, we can build a stronger, kinder community. Thanks for being part of this journey.